Hello, everyone. Well, what a privilege and a pleasure it is to be joining you today on this live stream session. I'm Jean Martyn, and I've been a musician all my life. As you can see, I've got my music scarf on round my neck with all the notes on, but I can assure you I'm not going to play the music on my scarf today. But what I am going to let you hear and see is a little insight into my life as a musician. I'm going to begin with my very early childhood because I started to play the piano when I was just 3 years old. And my parents had a piano in the back of the post office where I grew up. My mother was a violinist and my father was a choir boy. So there was music handed down through them. And my grandfather was a band leader in the colliery band. But sadly, he passed away before I was born, so I didn't get to know him, which was rather unfortunate. But however, the genes moved into this gene, and at the age of 3, I was playing nursery rhymes on the piano. And my uncle was the choir master of Guildford Cathedral, and he came to see my mum and said, "You must put her to a music teacher. She's a gifted child with her music. Don't let it be wasted. She must go to a music teacher." Well, I did go to a music teacher. And from the age of 3 up until I was 7, I had lessons with this teacher who was very strict. And in fact, she used to say to me, "Jean, you must play properly and don't fool around. And if you play a wrong note, I shall rap your knuckles with a ruler." Well, that was, I don't think I did ever get a rap on the knuckle with the ruler. But what I am going to do for you now, I've walked across to the organ, and I'm going to play for you what I did for my first lesson, and I can remember it distinctly. But my teacher made the mistake of playing that piece. And as she played it and I listened to it, I used to go home with my music under my arm, and my mum would say, "What have you learnt today?" So I sat at the piano and I didn't open the music. I went, and so on. And she said, "Jean," she said, "where's your music?" I said, "It's here, Mum." And I put the music on the stand and I said to her, "Well, was it right?" And she said, "Yes, but what's that note on the music?" And I said, "I don't know, Mum." And I was playing it like a parrot, listening, and the music was just sinking into my brain like a sponge. Well, from the age of 5 then, 6 and 7, the lady Miss Hardman, who was my teacher, she said, "I'm sorry, but I can't teach her anymore. She's too advanced for me. She needs another teacher that can stretch her ability to play." Well, by this time I was at school, and I was at junior school. And when I was 11, this is a bit of history coming in now, because I wanted to be in a play at school, but I could play the piano better than the music teacher. She was only a one-finger pianist, and we used to do time and tune. I can imagine you can remember time and tune from your school days. Anyway, I used to listen to time and tune, and then she said to me, "Well, you can play for the children marching into assembly this morning." And I said, "But Miss, I really want to be in this play." And it was about a little goose girl called Wilhelmina, and it was a Dutch story. Now, bear that in mind, because all these years later, that is quite an interesting fact. I shan't test you at the end, but there you are. So she said, "Well, I'm sorry, Jean." She said, you can't be Wilhelmina." She said, "You've got to play the music for the play." So that was that. But when I was 11 and I left school, I then went to play the organ in a church. And I was one of the youngest people to play it and having a post as an organist. So I'm going to play for you now a little bit of classical organ music, like as if we were in church. And this is a little bit of Bach, and I hope you enjoy this. So there we have the Bach Prelude and Fugue in D minor. Well, that piece of music was one that I was very fond of playing. And when I went to play it in the church, the organist who was leaving was having his coffee, and everybody wondered who was playing the organ, because I was hidden at the top of the church, right up in the gallery behind a curtain. And they were amazed to see him standing there and say, well, who's playing the organ? Well, it was me. And so I was given the job of the church organist at the age of 11, which was wonderful. And I've played the church organ all my life. I've been a Christian all my life, and I love to sing and play my hymns. One of the hymns that, well, my husband loves to hear me play this one. And I'm going to do it for you. And it's All Things Bright and Beautiful. And if you want to sing along wherever you are, you might like to join in with this one. So it's... All Things Bright and Beautiful. Well, I went off then to my secondary modern school then. I didn't pass for the grammar school because I was a bit of a sickly child when I was 6, and they thought I wasn't going to make it because I had this awful illness. But however, I did pull through, and I went off to my secondary school and I qualified from there. But I wanted some O&A levels. So I went to a technical college. And when I was at the technical college, in the lunchtime, there was a beautiful Bosendorfer piano in the hall of the college. And I used to go in there and I used to play at a lunchtime and enjoy myself on the piano. And the head of the department came in and he said, Jean, he said, we've had an enquiry from the local arts council in Cannock in Staffordshire, and he would like you to do a lunchtime performance. Well, I'd never done a performance in a lunchtime on a piano like that, and I was so nervous. And my mother said, look, you haven't got to be nervous. You can play quite adequately. So I'm going to buy you a new dress and some new shoes. So she bought me a new dress, she bought me new shoes, and I walked down the centre of that aisle to a rapturous applause from the audience to get to the grand piano at the end. But unfortunately, my shoes squeaked on every step of the way. And each time I made a step, I got my shoes squeaking away. It got to the end, and my music teacher then, a man, a different teacher, had said to me, Jean, catch hold of the end of the grand piano and give a bow just to compose yourself. Well, I did that, and unfortunately, these new shoes had slippy bottoms, and the next thing I knew, my nose was on the floor. So the head of the department picked me up and stood me up, and by this time, the audience were not sure whether to laugh or cry or what. I'm sure you're all smiling away as well. So as I stood up then and sat on the piano seat, I lifted my hands up and I caught my fingers on the lid, and the lid fell down and landed on my fingers. So after all of that, the squeaking, the going on the floor, and my hands falling underneath the lid of the piano, I was thinking, well, this is a little bit crazy. So I was going to play a piece of music that was classical, but I had to do this one instead. Well, that probably stirred a few memories in your minds of the lady who used to play that piece of music, and that was Winifred Atwell. And it was, of course, the black and white rap, and that they used it for the snooker programme some years ago on the television. Well, those pieces of music have stayed with me all over these years. And this was the piece that I played in the college in the lunchtime concert. But I'm going to play something for you now to take you back quite a good few years. And this one, when I was playing in Walsall Town Hall, the reason I say Walsall, because it's in the West Midlands, it's sort of on the verge of the Black Country. And when I was playing in Walsall Town Hall at 15, which was again one of my early concerts, I played this piece of music. And I didn't announce it until after I'd played it. And this lady came over to me in the interval and she said, Jean, what was that piece of music you played? I said, it was the Warsaw Concerto. And she said, well, I've lived in Warsaw all my life and I didn't know we'd got a concerto. So, of course, this comes from the film Dangerous Moonlight. And I hope you enjoy my rendition of the Warsaw Concerto. you have the Warsaw Concerto. Well, when I left school, I then had to decide what I wanted to do as a career. And because I love my music and I was still at school and college, I thought, well, I think I ought to go to a music college. Well, I went down to London, didn't I? And that was absolutely fantastic. But to ease the burden of spending on books and being a student and no grants and that, I had to get some money to subsidise my years at the university. So what did I do? I went in a restaurant when I used to come home at the weekends. My mum and dad bought me a little Mini when I was 17 and I passed my driving test first time. And I used to zoom up and down the M6 and the M1. Well, the M1 then. I used to go the A5 and the M1 to get down to London. And I used to arrive on a Monday morning just in time for the first lecture and leave on Friday lunchtime to get home. So Saturday evening saw me in this restaurant. And in the restaurant, there was a Hammond organ, which was absolutely great. And I used to sit and play to the diners. So I'm going to play for you now a little bit of Hammond music, and I think you might recognise this one. It's a very old tune from the 1920s. Ain't She Sweet? So here we go. Ain't she sweet? Mind you, the people who were eating the steaks and the chips and whatnot, they didn't go to the speed that I was playing, thank goodness, or else we'd have had a lot of choking people, I think. Well, then I did my 3 years in London studying music. And the professor of the university used to say to me, Jean, stop rocking Beethoven, because I used to I used to do my classical pieces, like the Moonlight Sonata. And then I would make a jazz version of it. And he used to say, will you stop rocking Beethoven? And just after that, of course, that big hit came out, Roll Over Beethoven. And he said to me, if he heard you playing like that, he would roll over. But he was a very good tutor, my tutor. And I was very privileged to spend 3 happy years there, gaining my music degrees. In fact, when I was 15, I did a first degree privately through Trinity College, and I became an associate of Trinity College London. And then when I finished at my university, I did an extra year at the Guildhall School of Music and was tutored in jazz with Johnny Dankworth. And Johnny Dankworth was absolutely amazing. He just said to me, just improvise, Jean. So I'm going to improvise for you now, and I'm going to play for you. I'm going back to All Things Bright and Beautiful, but it's not like you heard it earlier on. So I hope you enjoy this. This is Jean Martyn improvising. all things bright and very beautiful. Well, after that, I then went into teaching, and I taught in a primary school, and I had wonderful years in primary schools, and I taught for 35 plus years. I was made redundant, or I took early redundancy one day, and 3 days later I was reinstated because the children were missing me, and there was no music in the school, and it was all sort of very sad. So I went back into teaching, and I retired when I was 55. Now, in those years that followed, or during those years of teaching, I was still playing. I was playing in church on Sundays. I was playing little concerts to raise money and for various charities. And over the years, I've raised over £100,000 for different charities such as cancer research, motor neurone, guide dogs for the blind. But one of the biggest concerts that I ever raised money for, and a very special one, was a concert in the church in Brood. Now, Brood is a little village in South Staffs, and it has a beautiful church, and the Birmingham Canal runs right through the centre. So in the summertime, it's beautiful because we get people coming through on their houseboats and barges and so forth, and they all wave as they go past if you're having a stroll along the canal. But I went to Brood in the year 2000, which was, of course, the millennium year. And I had many happy years there. I became a Rotarian, and I was also appointed the organist of that church. And this is where I spent a lot of time playing a beautiful pipe organ. But I decided that I wanted to do something. And I played for this charity for 10 hours. I started at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I came off the organ, or should I say 12 hours, at 10 o'clock at night. And I was fed water with a straw in the bottle to keep me not getting dehydrated. And I was being fed little bits of chips and crisps and carrots and bits of cucumber and things to keep me going for the whole time. And I used every hour to do a different style of music. Well, I did this show and I raised £5,000, and it became known as the organathon because that was to raise money for the church. Well, it was such a success that I said to the vicar, I'd like to do a concert for the British Legion and see if we can raise some money for the soldiers and the veterans of the war. So I did this show in the evening and again raised £5,000, which was presented to the British Legion and the Not Forgotten Association and Help for Heroes. Well, that didn't go unnoticed because the Not Forgotten Association, who are down in London, they sent me a beautiful letter thanking me for the money and the donation, and would I like to go and do a concert for them at Christmas. And I said, yes, where would it be? And they said, well, it'll be in London, but a very prestigious venue. And you will need to have your passport, and we will let you know the details at a later date. Well, I got a bit excited. I thought, well, where on earth is this place I'm going to be playing in if I've got to take my passport? Well, it came to fruition that I would be playing in St James's Palace. Well, what a thrill that would be, I thought. So I went out and bought myself a very expensive dress, and off I went down to London. And when I arrived there, the policeman on the door checked who I was, and in I went up the huge staircase, and there was a Christmas tree, a Norwegian spruce tree that was up in the corner, and it was from the floor level to the top, and there was the Grenadier Guards band playing the Christmas carols. Well, I went to the top of the stairs and into one of the staterooms, and there awaiting for me was a beautiful Yamaha grand piano. Well, this grand piano was from Yamaha, and I used to work for them as a demonstrator as well during my school years. And I'm going to move back now away from the organ because I'm going to talk to you now quite a bit rather than playing the music. And when I got into the palace, I first of all met some of the celebrities that I was going to be working with. And one of them was Dame Vera Lynn. And Dame Vera was the most wonderful person that I think I've ever had the privilege of meeting. And before we did the concert, she was sitting in one of the staterooms on a sofa doing an interview for BBC television. And when she'd finished this interview, she got up and she came over to me, and she'd obviously seen a photograph of who I was and what I was going to do and accompany her. And she said, "Oh, Jean, I'm delighted to meet you." And she said, "Can we have a photograph together?" And I thought, my goodness, it should be me asking her for the photograph, not the other way around. Well, dear Dame Vera, she put her arm round me, and the photographer took this beautiful photograph, which I absolutely cherish. And then we went into this room to chat to Dougie Squires. And Dougie, of course, was the coordinator of all the shows for the Royals and so forth. So Dougie said, "Well, if you'd like to go onto the piano, Jean," he said, "and do your rehearsal and so on." And Boney M were on, and Kate Adie was speaking, and it was just the most wonderful, wonderful experience. And Dame Vera Lynn sang Yours, and she gave me the copy afterwards, and she signed it to "Dear Jean, yours." But the bit that made me smile, that I just omitted from telling you, was after we got up from the photograph and she got her arm round me, she was hanging on to me a little bit, and I thought, oh dear, do I just say, well, thank you, and move away, or what do I do? Because, you know, with a lady of that stature, I thought, well, I should be polite and just stand here. So anyway, I just stayed with her with her arm around me, and then she whispered in my ear, she said, "I'm glad you're here." And I said, "Why?" I thought she was going to refer to the music, and she said, "I've forgotten my stick." So arm in arm, we walked into the room, and she sat right by me on the piano on the front row, and it was just wonderful to have someone like herself and sitting there where I could virtually touch her from the piano. It was just absolutely amazing. And Esther Ranson came, and over the years I've been playing at the Palace now for 10 years every Christmas, and it's been a delight to be there. And of course, it doesn't go without meeting some of the royals, because Princess Anne, Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, is the patron of the Not Forgotten Association. And so I've met her now on 5 or 6 occasions. And also I've met the Duchess of Sussex, Sophie, and Prince Edward. I've met Prince Andrew and Beatrice and Eugenie. I've met Prince Harry. Yes, I can hear you all saying, "Whoa!" Well, that was at Buckingham Palace. But I don't play there. But I'm going to tell you about Buckingham Palace a little later on in the chat. So meeting all the royals was very special, but you have to be vetted before you meet them, and they send you a pamphlet, and it tells you what to do and what not to do. Well, all the people who were celebrities lined up in a line, and the princess came along, and she shook hands, or rather, she'd got a glove on and held her hand out. She did shake hands. And when she got to me, I was told not to curtsy or bow or do anything like a pantomime dame. I just got to say "ma'am" and just give a little nod. Well, next to me, I was chatting to another celebrity, and it happened to be Rolf Harris, who was on my left, and Esther Ranson was on my right, and we were both chatting away, and Rolf Harris said, "Do you know Tie Me Kangaroo Down, Jean?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, and do you know Sun Arise? And I said, yes. And he started to go, yum, yum, yum. And so on. Sun arise, come in the morning, scattering the skirts all around. Wow. And we having a ball, standing there in the line. And then I suddenly looked at the floor and saw this pair of navy shoes in front of me. And as I looked up, there was the princess. And I completely forgot the etiquette. And I said, oh, hello. To which the princess just chuckled, and she said, "Hello, Jean." She said, "You come. Have you enjoyed yourself on the piano?" And I said, "Yes, I have. It's wonderful." And she said, "I unfortunately are not able to listen." She said, "Down here." She said, "Because I have another engagement after I've finished meeting these people." She said, "And I'm going upstairs into the flat." She said, "So I listen to you through the ceiling." I thought, well, so everybody's looking. And I said, well, I hope I don't make any mistakes then. And her voice and her face changed. And she said, I sincerely hope not. You come highly recommended. And then gave me a wink and walked on. And that was the start of a lovely friendship with Princess Anne. Lovely lady. And she works so hard. And so the concert was done, and then onto the train and back home again. Well, that was in 2010. Following that concert, I'd had this thing come up on the computer, an advert from Britain's Got Talent. And it said, if you think you're good enough to appear on this programme for Thames Television, please fill in the form. And if we feel you can audition, we will contact you. Well, my husband filled in the form for the audition, my late husband, and he didn't tell me. And then one day I'm opening the post, and out came this letter. Dear Jean, we are delighted to say that you have qualified to audition for the television programme Britain's Got Talent. There are 66,000 entrants, and you are one of them. We will be delighted to audition you at Birmingham at the NEC. Please bring any instrument with you that you wish to play, or if you're bringing livestock, please make sure that it is caged. Well, that tickled me to death, because I took my portable piano, which was wrapped up in a duvet, and it was wheeled in on a sack truck. And it looked, for want of a better word, like a body, because it was all strapped up. But there were people with dogs and dressed up like warriors. And, well, there were all shapes and sizes and all different kind of acts, magicians and jugglers and all kinds of singers and instrumentalists. But the thing that stood out for me was my jacket. Now, when I'd got this letter to say that I was going to be auditioning, my friend said, we'll go shopping and buy you a jacket. Well, she was a big charity shop fanatic, and she was in and out of all these charity shops. And she said, look at this. And I said, wow. I said, that's a bit sparkly. Well, it was in the window on a model. So we went into the charity shop, and she got the jacket off, the lady did, off the model, and she said, try it on. Well, it fitted me perfectly. I said, how much is it? I thought it'd be an absolute fortune, because it was every colour under the sun. And she said, £5. I said, oh, I'll have it. So we put it in the bag and we went shopping, did our bit around Birmingham, and we came back home. And then on the Saturday afternoon, I had my photograph taken in all this regalia with my sparkly sequin jacket on, my nice trousers and my little red shoes, which I wore on the day with my gold thing on the top. Well, when we got into the audition room, it was like going into the dentist. There were just two cameramen, a producer, and I just put the piano on the table, and they said, what are you going to play? Well, it was Christmas, wasn't it? And I thought, well, I better do some carols. So I did a boogie-woogie version of Christmas carols. And I started off with Good King Wenceslas, and I did While Shepherds Watched and all these carols, and it had all got to be done in 1 minute and 32 seconds, precisely. So I played this, and at the end of it, one of the producers said, "Thank you very much." Nothing more was said. The piano was wrapped up, put back on the sack truck, and out we came. And I thought, well, goodness me, I wonder what they're going to do now. Anyway, weeks went by, and then on Christmas Eve morning, the letter came and it said, "You have got through the first audition. Your next audition will be in January." Well, I was going to India, wasn't I? I was going to spend a holiday in Goa. Well, I thought I can't lose my holiday, but I don't want to lose my audition. So they were very kind and said, "Well, don't worry, you can audition in Manchester." So my second audition for Britain's Got Talent, I went to Manchester and I had to be there at 12 o'clock midday. And do you know what time I went on to play? 20 minutes to 9 in the evening. And by this time I was getting a little bit fed up and I thought, oh, well, I'll just go on and do it now. If I don't get through, it doesn't matter because I'm a bit fed up of waiting. Well, I got to the side of the stage and there was Michael McIntyre, David Hasselhoff, Amanda Holden. Simon wasn't there at this stage because this was only one of the auditions. So it was a live show in Manchester with a full audience of 3,500 people. Ant and Dec were on the side of the stage and they said, "Go and stand on the tee." Well, over I went and played my first, stood there first while they chatted to me. And Michael McIntyre said, "What is your name? Can you stand aside a bit?" Well, I'd got the name on the front of my organ. And I moved over. He said, Jean Martyn, he said. And what do you think you have to do to win this competition? Well, if you want to see what I had to do to win the competition, you could take a look on my website, which is www.jeanmartyn.com. Or you could look on YouTube on the Britain's Got Talent, Jean Martyn, because all the clips of all the auditions are on there. But that first audition in front of the judges, I played my heart out and I did a boogie woogie selection. And it was Elton John's Crocodile Rock. And I did Great Balls of Fire. And they actually put flames and fire coming out of the stage. It was absolutely wonderful what they did for my auditions. Well, I got through that, and then it was the reveal and so on. So you do all these auditions, and then if you get through to the final, which I did, and I was getting very excited because through to the final is when you actually see Simon himself. And the four judges are all sitting there, and they changed my music a little bit. And they turned the organ round sideways rather than me being on the front facing them. I was turned round a little bit, which a lot of people said they would have rather had me facing like I did on my first audition. But Simon said something and he said, "Jean, I can see you playing the organ at the end of the pier in Blackpool with this fish and chip music and so on." And so for the final, that was why the music was all changed. Well, the final was nerve-wracking. And at the end, of course, the red lights, which are above the stage, all come on if you're going home. Well, when I knew I wasn't going home and I was going to do this final, it was back into the studios to do the work and the rehearsing and sort the music out and get everything correct as I wasn't going to give a faultless performance. But the only thing in the final that did bother me was I didn't realise that they'd put a microphone on me to talk to Stephen Mulhern at the end, but it was on. And I forgot and was enjoying myself and started to sing. Well, I don't know whether that went against me, but it didn't matter because there was a winner and there were 9 finalists, and one of those finalists was me. And 16 million watched the final. And at the end, we had an after-show party where I met Stacey Solomon, Peter Andre, Louis Walsh. There were some wonderful people there, and all of us 10 finalists all had a party, and it was absolutely fabulous. Well, then it was time for the hard work because in 2011, that was the last time that Britain's Got Talent did a tour. And the tour was all over the British Isles. And we started off, we rehearsed for a week and got everybody sort of timed perfectly. They did give me a bit longer to play, 1 minute and I think it was 50 seconds rather than 1:32. I had a little bit longer because then we were called to the front of the stage to speak with Stephen Mulhern, who was our compere. And it was rather lovely because on every performance, Stephen was in the dressing room next door. So I got to know Stephen very well, and we chatted and we laughed a lot. And all the other finalists were absolutely great. We had a wonderful fortnight of friendship, laughter, and we were put in the most beautiful hotels. And we played all over the place. The first place was the furthest away. And we started off in Edinburgh, then we went to Aberdeen, and then we came back down the east coast and we did Sheffield. We then cut across and went to London. We did Nottingham, Manchester, and all the way down to Bournemouth, and it was absolutely fabulous. But halfway through the tour, I was 60, and we were all taken to the Dominion Theatre to see We Will Rock You. Well, that was a wonderful experience. But on the night afterwards, when we were at Wembley, a little bit of a tragedy struck in my life, because on the Tuesday night we'd been at Nottingham, and Nottingham wasn't too far from my hometown. So friends who'd come to see me brought me back to see my parents because my mum wasn't very well. And when I got to see Mum, my dad said, look, you've got to go back. Your mum wanted you to be a musician. You've done so well. We've watched you on the television. You're not to stay here because your mum, if she slips away, she knows that you're doing what she wanted you to do for all your life. So with a very sad heart, I left my mum and dad and I went back onto the coach. We picked up the coach on the motorway and went further on to the tour to Wembley. And at Wembley, it was 20 minutes past 6 and my telephone rang on the 22nd of June and I was told by my son that my mum had passed away. Well, the only thing that I could think of in that situation was she paid 2 and 6pence for me to have my piano lessons, excuse me, and so I must carry this on. Well, when Stephen called me to the front of the stage, he said, Jean, he said, do you want to play? And I said, yes, I do. So I played my heart out. And at the end of it, he said to me, tell the audience what's happened to you tonight. Well, I stood there in front of this crowd of people. It was absolutely heaving in Wembley Arena, and there wasn't an empty seat. And the people were all quiet while I said, tonight I've lost my best friend and I've lost my mum. And she gave me and made me who I am. And, you know, I wasn't expecting what happened next because the whole of the audience in Wembley Arena stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And I thought, well, what a better tribute for my dear old mum. Well, we carried on the tour then, and then we finished it on the 24th of June. So we'd done 12 performances. Absolutely fantastic it was. Or rather, should I say 20 performances in 22 days. But each performance was the same every night, and I just lived it and loved it. And I thought, if this is what show business is, give me some more. Well, when I came back then from Britain's Got Talent, I was under the wings of an agent and I played at some prestigious venues. I still went to the Palace. I went on This Morning with Warwick Davis. The presenters then were Philip Schofield and Jenny Seagrove stood in for, it wasn't Holly Willoughby then, but the two of them were so lovely and they asked me all about my musical career, and I was with Stephen Hall, who was one of the other Britain's Got Talent finalists. And we had a wonderful time on there. Warwick Davis was on Daybreak with me, and he was just super. In fact, everybody was just lovely. Well, the following summer, after Britain's Got Talent had finished, Dougie invited me in my celebrity status not to play in the summer at St James's because that was my Christmas event, but to go to Buckingham Palace to a garden party for the Not Forgotten. And it was then that I crossed paths once again with Dame Vera Lynn. I met Cilla Black, I met Hannah Gordon, I met Pam Butcher off EastEnders, Pat, of course, absolutely wonderful person, and dear Christopher Biggins. I can't tell you how many celebrities I've met, but the highlight again on the Palace lawn was to brush shoulders and be introduced to other members of the royals. And I've mentioned some of them. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester were some. And the only ones I haven't met are Kate and William. And I haven't met Prince Charles and Camilla. But to meet the other ones were just absolutely wonderful. I'd always dreamt of being introduced to a princess, but thought it would never ever happen. And to have met all those princesses and all those princes in such a short time. And following the Buckingham Palace garden parties, I was then invited to the Windsor Horse Show, again courtesy of Dougie Squires, OBE. And Dougie, he put me on a bandstand and I was able to play in the middle of the Royal Windsor Park, where all the horses were doing all the show jumping, and there were some very professional horse and jockey people there. And the Queen was there. And I actually saw the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, and they drove past in the Land Rover. And it was just so lovely to think, well, I've seen the Queen and I've seen the Duke of Edinburgh. And Prince Andrew was looking for some sunglasses in one of the stands. And he almost stepped on my toe. So I spoke to him also. So that was an experience that I'll never forget. Well, you might be wondering now what's happening in my life now, because it's been 10 years since that performance on Britain's Got Talent. And since then, I've appeared in television programmes with Amanda Stedman, Love and Marriage, where I played a Tchaikovsky sonata in one of the programmes in Coventry Cathedral. I've taken part in a newspaper programme which was streamed every week called Sun Bingo Having a Ball, and that was with Rusty Lee and Chico, and that is also on the YouTube clips called Sun Bingo Having a Ball. And I'm at this very moment as we speak, I'm appearing on another bingo show, but this bingo show is streamed and it's called All Stars Bingo. And it's with Linda Lusardi and Rusty Lee and Christopher Biggins again. And we have again a ball. They're Mr. Motivator. We have such fun. And I'm actually a human jukebox and I have to disguise pieces of music. So I play all this wonderful stuff and they all have to guess what I'm playing. Well, I can disguise it very well, I can tell you. But classical concerts, yes, I'm still doing classical concerts. And I heard on the radio this morning, I was asking my Alexa what music is out of in public domain, which is out of copyright. So you're allowed to play out of copyright music now. But during my exam time, one of my pieces of music that I played when I left music college was George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. And I've just learned that that is now out of copyright. So I can't play you the whole thing because it's 38 pages and we haven't got that much longer to chat. But I'm going to play for you the main theme of Rhapsody in Blue. And I'm going to pick it up from this, and I hope you enjoy this. Well, there's Rhapsody in Blue. I play all sorts of music from jazz, classical, romantic ballads. And I thought maybe I could do a piece of music for you to leave you with in a few moments. But you're probably thinking, well, what am I doing now? Is there anything in the pipeline? Well, yes, next year I am going to be doing an American tour, which I'm so looking forward to, and hopefully on theatre organs. And one of the things that I haven't mentioned to you, and I've saved it till the end, is because I went in as a child to the Blackpool Tower, and I saw Reginald Dixon rising majestically out of the stage floor where the organ rises up and the ballroom becomes absolutely alive with that wonderful sound of the Wurlitzer. And of course, Reginald Dixon used to do this. Well, the Blackpool Wurlitzer, there it is. And this organ actually that I'm using is an AR100 organ, a Yamaha organ, and it's got all the gizmos on it, and I can make any sound that I want to. But I hope you've enjoyed the sounds that I've been using today. And the reason I've mentioned Blackpool is that I am going to be back in Blackpool again soon. I'm actually speaking to you from the Netherlands, where I have been. I came just before the COVID started, and I still am here because I have not had, well, I've just recently had my second injection, so I can come back now to England and straight to Blackpool, and then I'll be hopefully playing once more back in the Tower again. Well, life as a musician has been absolutely amazing. I find music just so therapeutic, and I hope you've enjoyed my story of my life today. The Dutch bit, do you remember me telling you about Wilhelmina, the little goose girl? Never did I think that I would be living in the Netherlands, well, living temporarily here in the Netherlands. And what a wonderful country it is. But I came to do a concert here last October. And whilst I was here, I met a very nice gentleman. And it was love at first sight. And we married in the March. Very quick wedding. But I have a most golden man, and he loves music. He built me this studio where I am sitting at the moment, and we just live life to the full with music, happiness, and well, it's just a wonderful life. So I've not just had a lifetime of sort of being here bored during the pandemic, because I have been not streaming, but I've been streaming live 3 times a week. And if you want to listen to me, you can go onto Facebook on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday. And I play in England at 7 o'clock and in Europe at 8 o'clock. And I do that, and I do a session of hymns on a Sunday at 5 p.m. So you're very, very welcome to join me. And I do all sorts of music. In fact, tonight I'm doing a rock and roll night. So I'd like to thank the Royal Voluntary Service for asking me to play for you this afternoon, and to be able to speak with you and share my life as a musician. You know, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So I'm going to leave you now, and I hope you've enjoyed my little show. And this is my signing off music. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine.